The Cultural Reckoning, Seeking Balance, Reclaiming Culture. Well, hello. Welcome. Hey, Chatmosphere. It's so nice to be back having another live stream. I am titling this live stream, we're just doing our episode 3 right now, and we're going to talk about Camelot, the Moors, Queen Califia, or if you say Calafia, that's fine, and the Mulungeons, if I said that right, the Mulungeons, the hidden kingdoms of America. I am excited about this topic, and I hope you are, and I hope you brought your discernment and that you will share in the chatmosphere. And let me cam up here. Let's see my friends. Well, hello. Am I looking at you? Hi there, everyone. Welcome and thank you. And I will see who's here in a bit. Who is here? Oh, I see a lot of familiar faces. Well, thank you for joining. Hey there, Tina. Karen, our beautiful Harlem Sentinel is here to make sure everyone is behaving in the chatmosphere. If we have guests, welcome. I love to have new faces, new names, and if you have new names that have changed, just let me know. I'm not trying to forget anybody. I know it's been a minute, but let's jump into this subject matter, okay? And I'm excited because I'm learning a lot. I have been researching, and it's so much to research, but it's very timely because I'm noticing a lot of conversations about these things. Even though we've had conversations in the past, I personally wasn't ready, and you might know what that's like, Tina. Of course, you know I wasn't ready to hear about certain things that you were talking about maybe 3, 4 years ago. Would you say, Tina? I was kind of on the fence, but it took just, I don't know, one thing. Remember, it was like a comment that maybe somebody, Joseph, might have made the comment, and it un just unearthed, let's say that, use that term, archaeological term. It unearthed so much for me. And I'm appreciative for everyone because you don't realize your comments are so important. And you know this, right? Don't you love looking at the comment section of a lot of the social media? Because I do. I think the comment section is very telling to how the culture is responding to the events and the changes going on in our world, and especially the things that we're starting to learn about our history. Now, I know that this is a controversial thing, and we like to talk controversy here. We don't shy away from hard conversations, do we, Chatmosphere? We are brave enough to discuss these issues. So I want to give a disclaimer that if you are easily triggered and easily offended and get in your feels, this may be a show that may trigger that in you. So I want to give you the opportunity to just think about if you don't want to talk about these kind of issues like racial issues, the history of America, these kind of things, secrets being unearthed. So we're going to just go right into it. So tonight, I want to discuss Camelot. Now, I'm talking about it as a person who doesn't know a lot about the myth, the mythology. Do you all know a lot about the mythology of Camelot? Let me know in the chat. And I will greet everyone. I'm just doing a blanket greeting right now, but I will see the individuals that are in the chatmosphere. But if anybody is familiar with Camelot and the mythology of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, I've always heard about it, but I never got into it. You know, history is new for some of us in terms of being an interest. So I'm really interested now. So, King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table, the medieval times. And this is something that for me, I love that it's all coinciding with the biblical scholarship, that the people who have left the churchy, rapture, left behind kind of dispensational teachings about the end times. A lot of us were caught up in that. You know, I shared my testimony of being really, really caught up in the end times eschatology. And it started with me reading Hal Lindsey's late great Planet Earth. So that's where a lot of this truth seeking began, because I was interested in what my mother discussed about the end times. It was interesting. It was scary, exciting, and I wanted to know more. So I would read her book. She would always have that book by her nightstand, and I would look at it, and then it's talking about the book of Revelations, and I was really like intrigued. I was terrified, but at the same time, you know, really curious. So you may also have that same experience, because a lot of us have similar experiences. So I'm no longer trying to pin the tail on the next antichrist or expecting the great tribulation and the rapture, the getting out of here kind of free card, as well as other things. I'm just not expecting it right now. If you are, I don't want to trample on your beliefs, but I've been there. I mean, I really have the t-shirt and the mug, okay? I have the books, the tapes, and I was really, in a way, it didn't serve me. It didn't serve me as a believer. Currently, exploring other options in terms of the book of Revelation, where we are. A lot of times my understanding was very linear. You know, you think this event has to happen and then this one's going to happen, because we think linearly. Time, and we're bound by a lot of limiting beliefs and things. So I wanted to explore the aspect of the Moors, because I don't know a lot about them. I know what I've heard, but I've not done deep research on the Moors yet. You've probably heard a lot of lectures. People have talked about the Moors for years, and even the sovereignty movement that a lot of people are aware of, it really is connected to the Moor community, because they taught a lot about the laws, the maritime, you know, the lectures. You've heard the different lectures, and people now are grabbing onto this information. Before, you would get shut down for trying to talk about this on YouTube. But I think it's relaxing a little. I'm not sure. I'm not going to get into that right now, but I just wanted to make the connection that the Moors were the ones that taught us about law of the land, maritime law, and how to become a free, you know, sovereign, right? So that's what I understand of the Moors. I know they wear fez hats and it's somehow connected to Islam. Possibly let me know in the chat, but I'm going to delve into it. I know that the Moorish science temples, they did pop up in the 1800s, I believe, in America, like in New York. So a lot of New Yorkers are familiar with a lot of these concepts and topics. People in the inner cities, we have a lot of lecturers and different teachers over the years. Some have gone on, passed on, but some would teach us history mixed in with the occult. And yes, I do admit that I studied the occult. I was very interested in it because, I love to learn, and the curiosity got the best of me. So I was interested in learning about the occult, the things that are hidden knowledge, I guess you could say. And, when you have a parent that initiates you into some of these schools, and, my grandfather, so in my lineage, I had, the Rosicrucian type of schools. And even though people denounce these things, they do carry certain lineage and bloodline issues that I'll go into at another time. But if you are into any of the Masonic organizations and you wear a fez hat, I know that that's something that the Moors do. Okay. And I've traveled to Morocco and I got to see the Moorish architecture up front, like in an amazing way. Now, there is Moorish architecture also in America, right? And all over the realm, we see Moorish architecture. If you're not familiar with it, I did upload a reel, like a short, and I shared some of the aesthetics of the Moorish, like, decor and architecture. So if you want to look on the channel and see what I shared to get an idea, but I'll share more of the aesthetic and architecture in, other uploads. So let's see, what are you saying? No, no, I'll get your name. No thing nesting. Did I say it right? Okay, you say the Moors went all over Florida, California, and Jamaica. Okay. So a lot of you know about the Moors and their kingdom. I'll say a kingdom and an empire of the old world. So, or if you want to say medieval, whatever, this is the time where we had the knights in shining armor. So there's a knight that I want to talk, a couple of knights I want to talk about tonight, okay? So I'm being corny, but thank you for joining. If you're here, thanks a lot. I'm going to check on you in the chatmosphere. I have our beautiful Harlem Sentinel, Karen. So Karen is going to take care of you. If you need to get me as I'm going on this little flow stream of consciousness, but I have my notes here. If you don't mind, I'll refer to some of my notes, but I just want to share the things that have been unfolding and see what you think. Okay, so let's start off with Saint Maurice. If you're familiar with Saint Maurice, also let me know in the chatmosphere. Do you know about Saint Maurice? Because I am really embarrassed that I didn't know a lot about Saint Maurice. I just started learning about him. Okay, so it's really recent. I heard the name Maurice. I heard the teachings of various people over the years. I think maybe Bobby Hemmett, people like that. They talked about the Moors and things, and maybe the name Maurice had come up. They may have talked about the saint. I'm not sure, but Maurice, when you see that name, more. Okay, so you see the name even in people's last names, more with an E on the end or spelled different ways. So the influence of the Moors is everywhere, all over our realm. And for some reason, it is occulted. Okay, it is hidden. in a way, because I don't know. I have my feelings on why it's hidden, but you tell me, also share why you think the Moorish Empire is hidden from history in such a weird way. Okay, so let's talk about Saint Maurice, the Moorish knight of Thebes. Now, Thebes. Okay, Karen, before I go, yeah, Karen has been sharing this in the comments, that the Moors have 5 principles that they live by. So you can say principles, you could say law, or you could say rights. Right spelled Rite. I want to thank a good sister on Instagram that she really put out a really good just conversation she shared today, and the stuff she shared really moved me. But she talked about rights, the rights, Right, as opposed to rights, Rites. Now, the Moorish Empire, the Moorish people, they lived by a code of conduct, a right, okay? These are things that they were able to build a flourishing empire. So we know that empires have what, 200 years tops. I'm not sure about this particular empire. We're going to sort out the timeline somewhat, but right now the timelines are like spaghetti. Okay, so I want to share some imagery with you, and you can see now that the timelines have been just like that, always like spaghetti, just overlapping. And we were told all of these people were different, times and timelines, different civilizations, when now, let me know what you think, but I'm starting to think that the civilizations were coinciding with each other, the major civilizations of this, ancient old world, or antediluvian rather, not antediluvian. So the Moors, again, their kingdom or empire fell. We know it fell because come on, the evidence is everywhere that the Moorish kingdom fell. The people of the Moorish kingdom, now the evidence of the kingdom is all around through the architecture and through the other parts of culture, because I didn't realize that the Moors have influenced so much of my life. Okay, my mother, when she was first married, before I was born, she decorated her first home in all Moorish furnishings. Okay, she went to North Carolina, which almost like ended my parents' marriage because she spent so much money on these things. She has very good taste. Okay, so she would get this beautiful furniture and artwork, and I didn't realize until I started looking at the different aesthetics of the Moorish empire, and when I traveled to Morocco, I was so drawn and resonating with Morocco, and I was like, what's going on here? There is something here. So I will continue to share about Saint Maurice. Okay, I know I'm going to get off onto tangents. Please forgive me because I missed you. I haven't been chatting with you in a long time, so it's so much to share. I'll try to keep this concise because I could talk about this for hours. I have taken so many notes, and I'm going to try to condense it, but I'll share other parts of it out, like break it down into pieces, okay? Because I know a lot of people don't want to listen to long live streams, okay? Some of you do, and that's fine, because I want to do long form content like this because I realize that I like long form content, right? So if I like it, why not make it? Because I like to listen to people just, I don't know, talking for a long time. It's just nice to have in the background if I've been doing all these like home improvement projects, and it's nice to have in the background, you know. So I want to provide that as well. If I can provide good content that you can listen to as well as look at, because I'm visual, so I'm going to try to provide you visuals as well, but I hope you can listen as well if you're busy, okay, at work or anything like that. Okay, so um, another thing about Saint Maurice, I want to go on because I had some slides that I prepared. Okay, so let me talk about this. Let me just back up a bit because I did touch on this a bit. I'm saying medieval Johns because the thing about the timelines and the theater of the mind, remember I brought that up. The theater of the mind is, it gives us a picture, a mental picture of what the times looked like, what they felt like, possibly what the people wore, what did they eat. I am curious. I want to know the food. I want to get into that because I know a lot of us are talking about these issues, these short season of Satan type of conversations. We're talking about the 1800s, the 1700s, and I want to have a real cultural reckoning where we look at the culture, what happened, root cause analysis. And when we dig into these narratives, I want to know things about the culture that are normal. That, you know, you want to know, what did they eat at the World's Fairs? Did anybody ask that question? Anybody? Am I the only one that thinks about food all the time? Let me know. Herschel, welcome. Hey, Herschel is saying, I'm going to try to read some comments in between, okay? Herschel, I just like seeing the way your eyebrows move when you're expressing yourself. It's sexy. Well, thank you, Herschel. Well, when I look back sometimes at my facial expressions and my eyebrows, I do wonder, like, okay, I have to stop all the facial, but you, at least you know I don't do Botox, right? Because, and I'm not trying to step on your toes if you do the Botox, but at least you know I don't do the Botox because I can move my face. All right, enough. I'm dabbling in other parts of our culture, okay? So, again, with the medieval thing, when I think of medieval times, I think of the fairs, the Ren fairs. I've never been really to a Ren fair. I've been to Ren type of vibe-ish, type-ish places, but never a full-on, like, everybody's really into it Ren fair. Does anybody go to the Ren fairs? Let me know, because the Ren fairs deal with this time of history, but it's done in a way that I've always seen people joke about Ren fairs and the whole culture of Ren fairs. But when you think of that time period, it has this primitive, everybody, you think of the plague doctors with the big nose, the scariness of it all. You think of plagues and you think of Europe being nasty, no hygiene, right? Those are the stories we hear about the Dark Ages, the dark time, medieval times. They were doing gross things, you know, throwing their, you know, sewage out the windows and gross things, okay? Really like uncivilized behaviors is what we were told about some of these times. Was that the case? I don't know. I've heard from other lecturers over the years that the Moors, they brought civilization to Europe. Is that true? I heard that the Moors brought hygiene and different things, you know, in terms of being civilized and having paved roads. I don't know. These kind of things, you know, you look at a civilization and, you know, you think of what makes for high civilization. So the Moors were known as a high civilization. Other civilizations are also known, the Egyptians known for high civilization. So here, okay, we're talking about the fact that Saint Maurice is from Thebes. Thebes in Egypt. Now this threw me for a loop because he is a Moorish military, wait, let me back up. Saint Maurice was a Roman military leader from Thebes in Egypt. So right there in this narrative, we see that two civilizations, the timelines are already intersecting. We see the Egyptian civilization intersecting with the Romans, and we know that the Greeks. So they were all on the same timeline, it seems. Tell me what you think about these civilizations and their timelines. So Saint Maurice, being a Roman military leader from Thebes in Egypt, and he is widely venerated as a Christian martyr. He is a Christian martyr. So the Orthodox Church, which is growing and thriving at this moment, which I've done also an upload about the orthodoxy and how it appeals to men right now. Men are finding a voice through the Orthodox Church. It's masculine, okay? And so a commander of the Theban legion. How many are in a legion? Can somebody tell me how many warriors are in a legion? I'll wait. I'm gonna wait and look at some of your comments so I can slow down. And then I get my pacing better when I slow down and check some of the comments, okay? So let's see. Tina, what are you saying? Tina is saying that lies mixed in with some truth in history. Yep, that's it, Tina. We're seeing a little bit of truth mixed in with a little bit of lie, and that is how they do it. Sheridan, how are you? Welcome. Okay, Sheridan is saying Renaissance fairs. Yeah, have you been to any? I know some people. Hey, IG, you said just do you. Okay, listen, if you see my eyebrows, at least I'm not doing the hands right now. Give me some credit. I'm making progress here as a presenter to the cameras. But I'm from Philadelphia. So I always tell you guys that I know I'm like a New Yorker. You know how New Yorkers are always like, look, I'm from New York. You're like, I know, you told me 50 million times this morning that you're from New York. But Philly is the sixth borough of New York, by the way. And yeah, we tend to always tell you we're from Philly, like we are memory erased or something. But yeah, I'm from Philly, and I use my hands a lot, but I'm going to try, and I think I'm doing okay with the hands. I'm trying, okay? But we Philadelphians we do the hands. So anyway, look at that. Let's go to the next slide, because look at me. I'll get off onto tangents and all kinds of things. Now, I want to talk about, again, this tripped me up a bit, that he was from the Theban legion. Did somebody put the number in? How many is in a legion? Legion? Nobody? Oh, Tina says about 5,000 soldiers in a legion. Okay, so this Moorish knight from Thebes, Egypt, Saint Maurice, he was the Roman military leader of 5,000 soldiers. What does that sound like to you? I don't know about army things, military things, but that seems pretty big, right? Okay, so in medieval and Renaissance Europe, Saint Maurice was depicted as a black knight in full regalia. Full regalia. And you can see in the picture his full regalia. I love saying that word. Is that okay? Regalia. Regalia. Oh, wait. Karen has another number for us. Karen says, I think that a legion has 5,000 to 6,000 Okay, so Roman legions have 5,000 to 6,000. So maybe 1,000 more were in his legion. Um, and by the way, he refused to kill Christians under Roman orders. So he went against Rome. You already know that is not going to turn out well. We already know he's a martyred Christian. So we know why. So he had the full regalia, often in shining armor. This is what just, oh, it takes me away. Shining armor, I'm so into that. I used to always hear about it, but it never made, I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. I don't know, I wasn't connecting it. But shining armor, we know as Christians that we wear the full armor of God, and we are protected when we are fully dressed in armor. And it is a spiritual armor that the believer wears. Okay, it dawns every day, baby. Before you get out of bed, you better put it all on, right? Especially if you're going out in the world. Please look into it. So the shining armor, the term shining armor, I'm looking at it, and when I've gone to the museums and I've looked at knights and the armor, I didn't, I don't know. I didn't really know how they fought in it. Okay. Am I saying something crazy? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, how can you run and really move and be nimble in this metal? What's that all about? I never understood how they fought, and they had it on the horses and just all of this stuff. Helmet, salvation, but all the gauntlet, the whatever, all of that. So how are you moving around quickly in this armor? Now, this is a thought, okay, because I'm going to put on your imagination, because I know this isn't a real new concept to you, but it's just stuff that I've heard, different little fragments of things that people believe. And then the movie Black Panther, which I didn't see. If you saw the movie Black Panther, I don't know. I never was into the Marvel thing, so it was no reason. It's just, it never appealed to me. So I understand that in the Marvel series Black Panther, the lead character, the Black Panther, he wore a like magical suit, and it was like a form of armor. So the suit did some things. Do you know what it did? Tell me. Share it with me, because I didn't see the movie. So you don't have to worry about ruining it for me. If it ruins it for anybody else, I'm sorry. But yeah, I I did hear that the the suit that the Black Panther wore had a lot of power to it. So could it be, and I've heard this concept, let me just put it out there for you to think about and use your imagination. Could this armor have been antiquitech at the time? Meaning, we're looking at it now. This is in the form hundreds of years, and also not activated by the proper people, which would be knights. So could it be that this armor is just like, what do you like, putrefied in a way? Like it's just it, well, it's non-active for the purpose that it had. I don't know. Let me know what you think, because I don't see how it was logistically possible to wear this stuff and to fight and be nimble again. So I'm thinking that it activated possibly with that night. And being that these were people, these are nobles, these are men of high civilization. They don't struggle with pornography or PDF files. They're like following the law. They're defending the kingdom of the Most High Yah. So a knight has a different just a different makeup. And so I am thinking that if this person of a high, high elevated morality and everything put on this mystical, powerful armor, maybe it would meld or something to become like part of them. I don't know. That sounds like kind of what? Science fiction-y? I don't know. That's where maybe they get the idea, huh? I don't know. I'm not trying to say any Elon Musk, putting any chips in you and merging with machine. What is that called? No transhumanism. Because see, we can take things that are good and we can always look at the bad because we've been beat down by the bad in this world, right? All we think about is how things are used for evil purposes because we are living in the short season of Satan. If that's not indication enough that everything that is good is bad, it's inverted right now. But when the kingdoms that flourished, high civilizations and cultures were walking these realms, and we see evidence of their architecture. They didn't deal with issues that the common mortal man and woman dealt with. But even though they were on the realm, they were defending the kingdom, right? That's what the wars were over. We heard the wars were over, the Christian church, taking over, but there was a segment of the church that went rogue. I'll say that, if that's okay to say, it went rogue. And if you look at the makeup of the belief system of where we could be in Revelation like 20 to 22, like, well, I definitely want to be in 22, but if it's Revelation 20 and we're looking at the short season of Satan, and you know we realize that the bad, it outweighs the good in the system, the world system, not in the kingdom that you can choose to be a part of. And oh wait, Abby Lynn is saying, let's see, millennial reign 1,000 years added to timelines. Yes, Gigi, that addition to timelines has been so disorienting. I know a lot of people talk about the time and the calendars and is it flamenco? It's a guy, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, that talks about maybe 700 years added to the timeline. It's up for grabs, but I tend to lean with 1,000. And I'm not saying that this person said seven, it's just my memory that maybe they stated 700 years. But yeah, definitely 1,000 years are in question. So if the 1,000 year millennial reign happened already, I know that the conversations that are happening within this sector, a lot of people are learning more, maybe changing their positions. You probably know about some of that. And I listen with an open mind to the people that are even changing their positions, because if they can back up why they changed their position, I'll listen. But I'm sorting it out for myself. We're all sorting it out because this is new. I never heard this concept. I was very church programmed, but I was only programmed to expect the Antichrist, the Great Tribulation, and the rapture if you were lucky. So this is new. The short season of Satan, thinking about us being past the millennial kingdom. Now, the people that I've listened to, different people, Jack, you probably listened to Madeline. I love Madeline, Leaving Babylon. Jack has a channel. I forget his channel, the name of it. You have the Conspiracy Are Us, who did the books about the Nephilim are clowns. You have Madeline, you have Shelley on No Place Like Home. Of course, Lunch Break, right? Lunch Break. the My Lunch Break, yeah, My Lunch Break, and John Levy. I mean, it's so many voices in this field of study. But some people are revising some of the things they may have jumped out with, and they're thinking about it, and it's interesting to watch this happen. um, and some people, explained about the millennial kingdom, because that's hard to believe, because I think it's hard to imagine, because a lot of us perceive the millennial kingdom to look like what Revelation 22, like the perfect utopia on earth, and the world system being perfect, and everybody's acting nice and following God's law, right? Well, the millennial kingdom may not have had everybody on the same program, okay? So they were being dealt with, though, at least in that time period, you didn't have bad outweighing good. Imagine it being the inverse, where good outweighs bad. If anybody were to commit a crime, there is a shame to bad behavior. Can you imagine having heavy amounts of shame for your behavior that you could have come upon you if you go out and behave in certain ways? And that was enough to keep you in line. Shame, okay? So that's a powerful thing, and that tells you a lot about a culture. But there are always people that, because of their free will, and because they have Satan to blame, which I think he gets a lot of blame, he gets enough blame, but I think the free will of humans and the way that we become corrupted, I think that we put too much blame on our adversary, when a lot of times we make the choices and we reap the consequences. We all do. Nobody's outside of it, right? So where was I? Back to I'm talking about shining armor, knights in shining armor. So these people walking around our realm, or maybe flying, being in Antiquitech that flies, because they even said that, what was it, King Arthur? One of those people, let me know, they said they flew around. He was known to fly. I don't know on a magic carpet, but all of these things that we heard about growing up, use your imagination, because we have such wonderful things in store for us, for those who believe and have an anticipation that we're not going to always be in this current world system as it stands, corrupted. We will live in a restored world, okay, without end. So I just wanted to share that. But the knights in the shining armor, let's see, um where was I? Oh, so they carried standards and banners, and that's another thing, okay? You probably love the regalia of the crest, and what else do they call it? It's another, like, all of that regal stuff. Have you always been a person who loved to look at that stuff? I'm still with you. I always love the motif of crowns and royal pomp and circumstance. I like all of that. Overboard is the best. You can't go too overboard with royalty when it comes to my taste personally, okay? I'm all for it. But I'm only for it if it's authentic, okay? People who don't really deserve titles, and we could name a few right now. I'm sure you could throw a few in the chatmosphere. People who don't deserve royal titles, it is identity theft, and it's not authentic. You can just look at it and see it's fake, and it doesn't carry authority, real authority given by God. Okay, so I mean, he does set up leaders and rulers, but some people have usurped, and we've allowed them because we choose sometimes to follow. All right, so I want to get into some of the regalia in terms of the crest, because I want to talk about family crest and remind me, I want to talk about that another time. I know I keep saying another time. I'm not going to keep doing that, but I want to pen that down, that I do want to discuss some of that because I want to look into it myself, like my own family crest, the Washingtons. All right, so relics. We have Catholics in the chatmosphere. I know I offend a lot of Catholics. I was baptized as a Catholic as a baby. So some of them say that you're always Catholic if you were baptized, but my dad was Catholic, and I have no problem with Catholics, but the church, okay, the leadership, the things like that, I have issue with it. Okay, sorry. I know it makes people mad. They defend the church with a lot of passion, and that's fine. But I have to be balanced in the way I look at. If I can criticize the evangelical church and the Protestants, then I can look at, Catholicism as well and be critical. So there are relics that are enshrined in the Magdeburg Cathedral in Germany. Now, I want to talk about the fact that Germany comes up a lot. We were just talking about the Grimm fairy tales. We were talking about Snow White and the controversy about what Disney has done to the classics of these fairy tales. Now, people, I can listen to them. They're going a little bit crashing out over some things. I think the criticism is warranted, but some people go a little too far, I think, because they act as if the Grimm fairy tales were the originals. And because a lot of us are looking at research in a different way, and we're not putting our personal feelings in it because we want it to turn out a certain way and root for our own team, we have to get out of that, people. We have to get out of rooting for our own racial team, ethnicity, whatever group. It's ridiculous, okay? And it doesn't allow for a person to be balanced in their scholarship. You know, so I've heard people go off because they're like, okay, the racial background of Snow White, this lady Rachel Zegler, she's a Latina actress, and she's brown, as they like to call. So people are mad because they're like, well, she was named Snow White, right? So she's white. Um, the original says she's Snow White, and you needed to keep with the classic. Now, that's where I'm like, okay, is it really the original? Because I don't think it is. The Grimm brothers went around collecting stories from grandmothers, different people, the town gossip, maybe someone's diary, books, um, sitting at cafes, going to the grocery store, collecting stories. They were involved in the cultures for some reason. Now, they did not originally produce these fragments of stories, of archetypes. It wasn't the Grimm brothers. Can we agree on that? And Disney is not an originator of these stories, of these cultural touchstone stories. These are archetype stories that go beyond Disney's timeline, beyond the Grimm brothers, way before the 1800s. So if they have fragments of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and the Grimm brothers had fragments of stories that were in old German books for kids or just stories handed down. Oh, Tina said gossip at beauty salons. Exactly. Go to the barber shop. That's where you know what's going on. Sit on the porch. People did that kind of stuff, right? That was your chat room, was the porch. So you can collect stories and then you can embellish stories. But I think everybody needs to humble down at this moment. I think Disney is causing the culture war on purpose. Okay, that is my belief, my opinion, Disney. I think it's being done on purpose because it is to subvert. And when you think about, I don't think Disney is a good company, in my opinion. I don't. I have looked at Disney, the man, a little enough to know that he may have been a racist, a real racist. And I don't throw that around a lot anymore. But I think he was. And I don't think he was a good person, personally. He did do some good things. People, in a balanced analysis, there are some good to the Disney thing. I had fun going to the parks growing up, but I also am not feeling good about this company, especially with the way that this was the first animated movie. How can you, as a company, take your first animated movie and do something like this? If you didn't mean to do it, you can't tell me they did not do this on purpose. And I know they're losing millions of dollars, but what does that mean to people when they're part of the kingdom of evil? What does that mean? They can throw money away. They can make it in other ways. Allegedly, they make it in other ways. Disney is not going to hurt if they lose money on movies that are produced for the front public looking, okay? If you read between the lines of what allegedly they say Disney does, they do other films, other things. So we know they own ABC, and look at the filth. Look at the opinions. Look at this woman that just tanked this movie. They were okay with her. They were okay with her opinions, the feminist girl boss, all of that. They were loving all of that. It just came back to bite a lot of them, but I think the overarching purpose was to destroy culture ultimately. Let it go 100 years and just break everybody's heart and demoralize people, because those stories were done to teach lessons and morals. So if you don't want that done, of course, there's always, like, they hide the evil in plain sight. That's how they operate. They think that they don't catch consequences that way because you give the people the chance to consent, even if it's not, real consent. So I want to say that the Germany issue, Germany was not called Germany always, okay? Those regions were not carved up the way they are now. The modern nation states were not the way they were. So we have to just kind of get beyond that, okay? Because there are narratives. Being that I'm from Philadelphia, I like a lot of the historical narratives now. Benjamin Franklin, there's some narratives when he talked about swarthy Germans. Do you know about that? Swarthy Germans. Now we can find, we can debate what swarthy means, and we can do that and, get nowhere. But Germans don't look all one way. No group of people, I think, looks one way presents one way. So going by color and things like that, I don't know if that's really how the ancient world did it. Do you agree? The ancient world, they looked at bloodlines a different way. But I want to look at the church in Germany. Look at this church right here. This is the church, one of many churches that are dedicated to Saint Maurice the Moor. Now this is in, again, Magdeburg, Germany. So this cathedral, we are learning as we learn about architecture that cathedrals are antiquitech. A cathedral has a lot to do with the energy, the free energy, and other technologies that the high civilization that the Moors and the Egyptians and the other civilizations experienced. Okay, they weren't paying heating bills, electric bills to petty tyrants. Okay, that's why they could have an elevated way of living, because they weren't wage slaves. And when you are not a wage slave, you have an elevated way of thinking. So Germany, with these beautiful cathedrals, the cathedral, the name cathedral, in that name is cathode. Cathode, right? You all know about the cathode and the whole technology behind cathodes, batteries, and different things like that. I think of my grandfather. My grandfather worked for RCA. I've told you all, that's why I love the gramophone. If you wonder about me and the gramophone, it's because of my grandfather. So he worked at RCA and he could fix televisions. Back in those days, not that long ago, because it was my grandfather was doing it, he was fixing televisions. He was taking tubes. They had these tubes, and I remember him talking about it, cathodes and different things. These men knew this science. They knew it. Radio technologies. They knew this science. So when I think of cathedrals, and the many cathedrals that have been actually taken down. One of the cathedrals my parents was married in Philadelphia, the Church of the Transfiguration in West Philadelphia, was taken down. When I'm in Philadelphia, I'm going to drive by there, and guess what? This is what I'm expecting to see. Okay, in the spot where my parents were married, a beautiful Tartarian Catholic church. It was called the Church of the Transfiguration. You can look it up. It was in West Philly on the corner. Beautiful building. Inside, and I'm going to show you all, there were columns. And the columns looked Moorish. A lot of the architecture in the inside looked Moorish. And they, of course, had a pipe organ, right? And so these cathedrals had the pipe organs. And Philadelphia, being a very old Tartarian city, just closed down, the pipe organ that's that was inside the building Wanamaker's. So we have these pipe organs all around. That's the biggest pipe organ in the world operating. It's in Philly, okay? In Philly. Can you imagine? And people just live in Philadelphia and a lot of people have no idea the type of city they live in. Of course, it's a hot mess, but the history and the high civilization that once it was pervasive in Philadelphia. Not that long ago even. I remember people living in a more elevated way when I grew up in West Philly. Yeah. So, in the cathedrals in Germany and all around the realm, there are cathedrals in France that are dedicated to Saint Maurice, the Moor. So, there are relics, and I know the relics can get a little bit dicey. I don't want to look into them right now, but I'll look into what's going on. Do they have bones over there? What's going on? I'm not trying to judge. What's it called? Ossuaries, the little box that they put the bones in, or they have the actual body sometimes that is preserved. And I'm okay with it. I'm cool if that's what people do, their burial rites and things. And remember that Maurice is from Thebes. He's from Egypt. So, okay, this mashup is wild. It's really wild. When you think about it, oh, wait, I'm sorry. When you think about it, this man is Holy Roman Empire, but he's from Thebes, Egypt. Again, I'm repeating it. Okay, so these cathedrals were used for royal ceremonies. Think about it. Through the history of these royal families that we see right now, they had coronations and beautiful pomp and ceremony in these cathedrals dedicated to this Moor. So he's like a mirror of what has been erased actually from memory, even here in America, because the Moorish Empire and all of these empires, they were all over. They weren't limited to a geography. All right. That's something I have to always keep telling myself. So, American memory, how is that shaped by the nobility of the Moors and the knightly code that they lived by? And the connection to the divine, to the Most High Yah. So there's another night that I read about in the book. Some of you have the book that I need to get into a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna finish it. I know it's not a big book. I know. Don't get on to me. Okay, so the book travels to the other world and fantastic other realms, medieval journeys into the beyond. Okay, so I'll just talk about the introduction. And this is where I heard about Saint Maurice again, is mentioned in the introduction. But there's another knight that I want to talk about, and his name is the Knight Tundal. Tundal, spelled Tundal. Okay, so Tundal, Knight Tundal, he had fallen into a coma, and the spirit of this knight, Tundal, was stolen away to visit hell and purgatory. I know. Okay, before you get on to the, no such thing as purgatory. Okay. There are realms in this world, and they were called different things. Okay, so hold on before you knock it, because I know that we have a knee-jerk reaction. A lot of us evangelical mindset people, that when we hear Catholic terms, we can, you know. So he was stolen away to visit hell and purgatory with an angel. So an angel is always your guide when you go into other realms, right? And it has to be the angels of the Most High Yah. You don't want to go with any other angels, right? And let's see, as his guide. So before finally seeing heaven or its antechamber in the distance, antechamber. That's an interesting word. So this journey sometimes unfolds in corporal, like in the body. like the actual physical body. And it says by means of a double persona. That was fascinating to me. A double persona that a deep coma can create for a physical journey. So sometimes the person goes on these journeys in spirit, but a physical journey can also be done in the corporal, in the body. And I've heard stories of people, in fact, I shared one on the old channel. Do you remember the young man? I love him. His name is Noah, and he's a believer, young guy, but he covers great topics, and I really love, he has a brother that does content also, in fact. So he had a young man on that had died, and he was in the hospital when he died. So his mother had held a vigil. Do you remember? She held vigil over him, and I think he was a teenager, and he laid dead in the hospital bed for I don't know how long. And his mother was one of those praying mothers, and she prayed like a prayer that would raise anybody. Like it was that resurrection power mother type of prayer. And she had other people, I think, in the family. They were a prayer warrior family, and they prayed and prayed. They probably fasted, and they, really put in the prayer work for this young man. And he came back to life. And he did a live stream, and he was talking to his young friends. They were all teenagers, and he was trying to give them a testimony of his being dead and where he was. Now, his friends were trolling him, teasing and laughing at him. They weren't even taking him serious. This man was pouring out a testimony on a live stream with his teenage friends, and they were just acting like teenagers, unfortunately. So what I remember from his testimony is that he said that the devil, who looked like a man, he said he looked just like a regular man, but he knew that this was Satan, the devil, the adversary, Lucifer, whatever name you call him. He knew that that was the person, but he called him a man and described him that way. And he said that he went with him to the furthest parts of the earth. Okay, we've heard that. To the ends of the earth. I even like a song by Pat Metheny, Ends of the Earth. What are the ends of the earth? We've been tossing these terms around and we don't understand what they mean. And the Bible talks cosmology. There is a biblical cosmology, and then there's NASA. We have to decide which one we will go with. I have chosen not to believe NASA, not to believe anybody who's going up in rockets. That includes Elon, okay? I don't ascribe to that. I am terra firma. I want to know what's going on this earth. So this young man's story was fascinating. He was more of a child. He was a teenager. But he said that the devil took him so far to the ends of the earth. And he felt the separation, the feeling of just knowing that you are becoming more and more distant from the goodness of the Most High Yah. You're becoming more and more alienated. And I felt the way he described the feeling of realizing how far he was being taken.
And the devil said some things to him, and I don't remember everything. I may revisit his testimony, but it struck me because I know that he wouldn't have made this up. It just didn't sound like anything that he would have made up for the type of friends that he hung around and just his, what he was into. So I believed his testimony. And his mother was, I mean, she was just so appreciative to God for bringing her son back, of course. And it was just powerful. So I want to say that when we hear, I'm going back to this purgatory issue. When we hear purgatory, it may be that that's the name given to a chamber in the earth, a cavern, cave, systems that go in Agartha into the earth. Now, come on, that can't sound too crazy anymore to most of us. I think that it's the revelation of the fact that we have tunnel systems and all kinds of things going on have already been revealed to most people. So I think inner earth chambers within the earth are very easy to believe. In fact, when Lazarus died and he went over to the bosom of Abraham, they say that is a physical place they used to call the bosom of Abraham, somewhere in the earth. We don't know about the unknown earth, right? So, okay, let me get back. I digress. Okay, so back to Thebes, Egypt. I want you probably already been looking at this. So think about the timeline mashup that the theater of your mind has to go through right now, like me, thinking of all these civilizations that just intersect. So you have Egypt over here, and we think of the pharaohs and all of this. Thebes, Egypt, you think of earth, wind, and fire covers, right? Where's my sister, who I know she collected all the earth, wind, and fire covers? Because let me tell you, I was so caught up in the album art. I bought albums or looked at albums that family members had, and I would spend time decoding, I don't know, looking at album covers because if you remember, album covers were so complex. They had folding album covers, front, back, inside. They had things sometimes, but Earth, Wind, and Fire never disappointed, okay? And they are a big reason for me becoming infatuated with the Egyptian culture and having to go on a pilgrimage to Egypt a few times. So I got it out of my system, right? And you probably have as well. But yeah, this Moor coming from Egypt is a mind bender, okay? Really is. And I know that we have a lot of debate over who are the Egyptians, okay? Who are the Egyptians? And a lot of black people, so-called black people, because listen, this whole issue of calling people by a color, this started in the 1800s. It's new. People were not called black, they were not called white. But until each group gives it up, it's what it's going to be. Because I think so-called black people need to refuse to be called that anymore and come from under it legally, because according to Black's Law Dictionary, it makes you're non-human, basically. You're not covered by the law. You're outside of the law, an orphan, when you are deemed black. And so white, it has good connotations, of course, but white is not real. Just like black is not real to call yourself. So white people have to also come to this realization. I think a lot of white people, so-called white people, are. They're starting to reject the color because it doesn't tell you where you come from, a color. A lot of white people that I know say they come from either you hear Europe, just in general, Europe. I'm English, I'm Scottish, I'm what else? I hear I'm German, Scots, Irish. What are the other things? I hear those are typical things you hear for American so-called white people. Now, German is not a race, it's not a color. It's a country, a nation, and it's a modern nation. So how can a person be German? I mean, I'm going to piss off somebody I know, but I'm just asking questions because I think we all need to humble down with our teams that we play on because a lot of it is not real. And it's starting, okay, right now, we are post race in America. We are post racial. So all the push for race, I hope they enjoyed it. Hope they got all their butter biscuits and shekels off of the race thing. It ain't the dog ain't hunting anymore, okay? When it comes to race. All the race hustlers that made just it ain't going nowhere no more. We're over it, most people. Most people are over it. The ones that stay stuck on it, the world is going to reset all around these people and they're going to be stuck. And when I say reset, it's like taking a stage and resetting it for the next scene. That's what's about to happen. I know we have a lot of bad connotations about resetting, but no, the stage needs to be redecorated, reset. And that's what's happening. And guess what? It's the Most High Yah that's resetting it. So don't worry about Claus because he stepped down, little puppet that he is. But he don't make the world shake. And we don't give authority to bozos like that. That's my opinion, by the way. So just calm down on the I'm this and I'm that and having all this pride. Because guess what? The Most High Yah doesn't like pride. In fact, pride is what makes any civilization person fall. It comes right before a fall. So all of the people who have racial pride are going to have to check themselves before they get humbled. Because it's best to humble yourself. Best to humble yourself, right? I like to humble myself and check myself when I can. But it's good to be humble about stuff, especially when you don't have all the accolades and all these things accredited to your group. There are no receipts that any group that's living right now has built all of the amazing architecture. The stuff that's built now, they call it the brutalism architecture. Boxes, glass boxes. What is that? So nobody can carry a lot of pride about, oh, we built civilization. We did. Did you? Did you? Because I am starting to see things a lot differently. Thank God for this scholarship of the short season of Satan and the mud floods. The architecture is what blew it all out of the water. Because you can't fake architecture. You can't fake that. That is going to stand the test of time. And when you know that these clown masons don't build anything, they don't build things. They build fake structures of mental imprisonment. And they suppress goodness. They suppress it. And they do a lot of other things that are nefarious. So now let me find out where I am. So the heaven and hell and purgatory, the knight Tundal, I talked about him going there, right? And we were talking about Thebes and the Egyptians. And as you see here, a pharaoh head, or maybe just any king of Egypt, that culture and architecture. And it's hard to deny when you look at the architecture and the things that were left behind. If you've ever traveled to Egypt, the walls are telling you right there if it's real. Listen, people act like all that stuff was even set up in a certain way for us to fall for certain things. I don't know. Like walls repainted and all kinds. I was there. I went inside the pyramids and I climbed all in there. I went into king's chambers, and oh yeah, I could tell you stories, okay, about Egypt and times in Egypt, and just being in a place that I always, thought was one way. And of course, like I said, drawn in by things like the sphinxes and things. And um when I went to college, the people that pledged the fraternities, they had a lot of Egyptian symbology and stuff. So it was always reinforced. And I went to the Nile Valley Conference when I was at Spelman, and I liked learning about everything that came on TV about Egypt, right? So there are people that believe that some of these explorers that came through, that they shot the noses off of the Sphinx for some reason. I don't know. I don't know. These are things that are said. Maybe. For what reason would you shoot the nose off? And here we are. For those who have been influenced by Earth, Wind, and Fire, go ahead and let me know in the chat. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. Okay, so these album covers really influenced me. Earth, Wind, and Fire. So they knew something, Earth, Wind, and Fire. They, what do I want to say? Okay, Maurice White and Verdell, and those guys, they were, and who else? Philip Bailey, beautiful falsetto, amazing voice of an angel. Okay, you can't tell me these are not the Levites. Okay, I digress. I digress. I digress. Okay, back to my point. Earth, Wind, and Fire, they knew some things. I'm sure they were initiated into some of the mystery schools of knowledge because they sang about it. Their lyrics initiated you into the mystery schools to a degree. Would you agree? Anybody who grew up listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire, the lyrics, they take you on a mental journey. I mean, if you think of I Write a Song, the lyrics they are ethereal. They take your spirit, like in the music. These men were actually creating sound and frequency with brass instruments. The instruments that you hear about in the Bible, all of these instruments, and they are just creating music that became the soundtrack for our generation. And if you listen to I Write a Song today and you turn it up, I know you're going to be in your feels. I dare you put on I Write a Song by Earth, Wind, and Fire and put that thing up loud and tell me you don't feel something. These men knew things, okay? They studied some of the knowledge. And yeah, we could say that's bad because you can do bad and you can do good with some knowledge, right? right? Am I wrong? Am I tripping? But I believe there are shades of gray in some of these things, and people get deceived like I did, and they go down paths to get knowledge. And some people, they seek immortality. But like I talked about that earlier in another episode, immortality done illegally is an affront to the Most High Yah, because He is the author of life. And you don't get to live forever without checking in with Him. Okay, so all these technologies these people think they're going to do and have done in the past, because we have knowledge that the Watchers and the civilization of the Babylonians and wherever Gilgamesh, he fused his DNA with an angel of some sort. So Nimrod, Gilgamesh, he was involved in transhumanism of some sort. He knew knowledge to extend his life somehow. But the thing is that it's a trick bag. You can't do it without the Most High Yah. Okay? So I will belabor these points because I know a lot of people are into the Egyptians like I was, because the Egyptians, they were really into death. They had the Book of the Dead. They prepared themselves for death. Some people thought they were obsessed with death. Death was the thing. It was their goal, it seemed. I don't hear much about, I don't know, life and stuff that they enjoyed, but it was a focus on death. Is that morbid? What do you think? So, okay, let's move on to, let's see, the cats are starting to come in. They're probably like, get off of the computer, lady. Okay, I'll be off soon, cattos. Okay, so this is a picture of Thebes in Egypt. Look at the architecture. Let me shut the door. I'm sorry. The cats are starting to come in. I'm still with you. So looking at this architecture and realizing that, look at this. We see this architecture all over. Is this Moorish architecture? What's your opinion? Anybody who knows their architecture? What do you think this looks like here in Thebes? Can you imagine this is Thebes? It looks very Moorish, the arches and things like that, to me. But it's fascinating that the architecture tells us the timelines. It just doesn't make sense, the timelines according to the narrative, because how is this architecture in Egypt? And then at the same time, we have pyramids. Feels like Las Vegas, right? Las Vegas is an exercise in taking timelines and just throwing them all together, right? So, look at some of these pictures of the Egyptians. And, not to get into, yeah, they were dark skinned. They had various people, they were a civilization. They were not a race of people, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm open to learning because I am really in a learning phase right now. So look at the look at the people that were the Egyptians, Thebans. Okay, so let's talk about Queen Calafia. How do you pronounce her name? And did you know about her? Had you ever bought the Calafia milk? Because I would buy the fake milk or whatever. I got into the fake milk. I don't want the fake milk. I want raw milk if I'm going to do milk. But anyway, let's see. Where did I go? Sorry. Queen Califia, the hidden empress of the West. What's up with that? Okay, so we have Calafia. She is the mythical black Amazon queen. Why do I want to do my neck like that? I'm a strong Amazon queen of California. So Calafia, which California is named after, duh. First mentioned in Las Surgas de Esplandian, which was written in 1510. She ruled over an island of warrior women, girl boss, and used trained griffins in battle. So my girl had trained griffins flying around, beating people up. Can you imagine what kind of sister is this? Anyway, look, this woman, mythical, you can fight me over if she's mythical. I believe she was real. I believe all these myths have a grain of truth in them. But I think this could be allegorical in terms of, I don't know. Do you believe in the flying griffin thing? Possibly. Look, I'm open to the griffin thing. Are you? Flying? But you know what I think that they were doing shady? Okay. I think that I may be off on this one, but I think that the Wizard of Oz was trying to throw shade at Calafia, and they did the flying monkeys after the griffins, right? And so they made her a green witch, right? Maybe that was some shade thrown at her for whatever reason, but I don't know. What do you think? So the trained griffins were just running, flying amok, kicking butt, and she had a squad of Amazons fighting everybody, beating everybody up. Okay, so the movie Wonder Woman is based on her. So this is what I mean. Okay, if we want to get into the that she's not supposed to, it's no way, she's white. Well, what about this? Were you angry at Wonder Woman being Gal Gadot from Israel, IDF soldier? Oh, she's okay to be Wonder Woman. Really? So let's just be balanced when we want to get offended and outraged. Get offended and outraged across the board because there's outrage enough for all of us, okay? Disney is trying to get us all to fight each other. We're talking about Wonder Woman was Calafia. And then you want Snow White to be white. I'm okay. You can keep Snow White. But look, we're going to have to talk about Wonder Woman. All right, because something's going on here. So, Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, Queen Calafia, kicking everybody's butt, the flying griffins. I mean, this is fantastic. I'm amazed at this, actually. This is, I was about to say they should do a movie about it. They try, but because they're not authentic and telling the truth, the stuff fails. It's garbage. Garbage on fire. That's what it is. What? A fire, dumpster fire. Okay, so a smelly dumpster fire that smells like sulfur. Okay, there's too many details, but I don't know. It just came to my mind that it's sulfur. All right, so yeah, Calafia. Another thing, we talked about this in the Invisible Remedial College when we talked about Calafia. Okay, so this is no big deal for us, right, Atmosphere? We've already talked about her. What was it, 3 years ago? You could. So okay, so look, we covered her, but I want to cover her with a new set of eyes, okay? New set of ears. Because I'm making some connections. I'm saying, wait a minute, okay, wait a minute. We talked about an African woman who came over to fight. Wait a minute, she had like, remember, she was hired to fight in wars back in the 18. These narratives were so crazy. They were like, oh yeah, they hired this woman from, what was that part of Africa? What's the name? I'm being summoned, but anyway, I'm gonna hurry up and wrap this up, okay? Because it's going on too long. I said I wasn't gonna do long live streams. Okay, all right, wait. Where was I? Did anybody write it in the chatmosphere? Where in Africa was the woman from that they said she was they based it on the women in the Black Panther, the ones with the bald heads, those warrior women. It was a real place in Africa, I think somewhere in Nigeria, that they said these women were warriors, and the king, he would send them out, like dispatch them out like trained assassins, right? Like what I was trained to do, right? Whoever doesn't know, you already know. They were training me to be Black Salt, right? Black Salt. That's my nickname, Black Salt. Any of my cousins watching, I know you scared, right? You scared. You think I'm CIA, right? Okay, they do. They think I'm CIA. All you should hear the stories they talk about me. But I was being trained. I was being trained to be an assassin. I was on that path, okay? And thank God for Jesus Christ got me out of that contract, or I wasn't in a contract, but I was in a Hogwarts type of situation when I was little. Oh my God, okay? I've shared too much, oversharing. So anyway, these women were trained assassins, and they were dispatched like I don't know, like mercenaries, trained mercenaries that go around and kick butt. They went to Mexico, right? They had the Mexican American War. I think wait a minute. Okay, hold it, hold it, hold it. Are you remembering this narrative? So crazy. They brought in these chicks from this part of Africa with these trained griffins. That's why I don't understand. How is it that Calafia is over in California, which was an island by then, and then she got flying griffins, and then you got the woman in Africa, I think Nigeria, who got flying griffins too, and she's fighting with a band of women. And then they take the movie, the Marvel guy takes these movies, you know, the guy Stan Lee, he based his movies, he said it himself, on Martin Luther King and Malcolm X as the adversaries to each other, right? It was like the tension between those two. Look, I am just remembering things that could all, I could just be making all this up. Tell me. I could be having a fever dream right now. But anyway, these are things I'm remembering. I'm making connections. So I'm thinking that I remember a narrative about the 1800s and some kind of Mexican war, and these black women kicking butt and having flying griffins. Okay, let me move on. Okay, so Wakanda, with the antiquitech, right? The technology, rich resources, and things like that. Armor. Hmm. I'm thinking about things a little different. I think y'all been pulling the wool over our eyes with a lot of this stuff, mixing in these crazy things with these narratives. I think a lot is allegory. I haven't figured it out yet. Has something to do with the gold rush, right? California gold. So we got Wonder Woman, the Amazons on Themi Skyra, straight from the playbook of the Calafia. Wizard of Oz, yeah. So I think they were, I was right, I was talking about the Yellow Brick Road. Yeah, look at my notes. I have these notes, okay, because I'm sorry, I can't remember all these little details. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Oh, wait, before I move on, Queen Calafia, um, she is painted, there's a painting of Queen Calafia and her warriors, her girl boss, boss chicks, the flying griffins, military griffins, and she's meeting up with, it looks like the guys from the, what is it, the Danish men that were on the Danish men, you know, coming in with the boots, the buckles on their shoes, you know, and they're meeting her. You know, they have all these motifs all the time. The guy's getting off the boat that looks like the Santa Maria and all that stuff, and he's greeting them. He's about to give them a blanket of measles or I don't know what plagues in the blankets. What's the narrative? What's the narrative? He's about to trick them. Is what it looks like. I don't know. I'm just thinking it's not going to turn out well. He got off the boat. He's greeting them. She's got gold in her hand. She's not dressed. She's topless. Her and her chicks are topless. And it just looks like an interesting situation. And I'm not trusting the guys that got off the boat. I don't think they have good intentions. And that's not calling a racial situation. I'm just saying, okay? I'm not being woke. Okay, so let me go on. Okay, so the picture of Calafia is on the wall of a hotel. And I started thinking, Hotel California. I could go so many places with this research, as you can see. Hotel California. I'm not saying that is the Hotel California, but there's a hotel in San Francisco where this mural is painted in a beautiful ballroom of Calafia, her holding the gold with her chicks, girl boss chicks, and the whole deal, the whole situation, how they took California. I think Gavin Newsom needs to pay reparations. I don't know. Okay, let me hurry up. I know you're tired, aren't you? You have better things to do on a Sunday. Okay, so this is Tundal. And when I looked up Tundal, they kept giving me Tyndall. So that made me suspicious. I'm like, I'm not saying Tyndall. I'm saying Tundal. Give me information on Tundal. And so that's a little bit hidden. But if you get this book, I'm supposing deeper in the book, we're going to find out about this knight, Tundal. And that was the realm. These are pictures of the realm that he went to. And then the picture that's the black and white, older picture right there, that right here, that is a picture of the knight. Okay, whoa, I just remembered this. This knight right here, it's a book called, remember I read it? Sarge, wait a minute, bear with me. Las Surgas de Espladin. I should know this, right? I only spoke Spanish fluently as a kid. Las Surgas de Esplandian. Esplandian. Written in 1510. So this knight in this book, Esplandian, talks about Queen Calafia. So what's up with that? That's dated 1510. And he's talking about Queen Calafia. So that's weird. Atlantis comes up, Nubia, Tartaria. We got a little bit of intersect there. Maybe did I say Atlantis? Okay, so anyway, let's go over to Camelot now, because I'm gonna wrap this up. I'll do another live maybe this week, okay? Because it's so much information. So just back to Camelot, the whole issue of Camelot. This might be America's hidden blueprint. I'm just going to put this on the table. It might sound like crazy talk right now, but help me, because we do group projects here. So this is where I'm going right now with my scholarship research, is the whole Camelot thing. This being JFK's favorite myth, right? We're saying myth. And after his death, Jackie Kennedy, I know what you're going to say about Jackie. I'm not ready to go there yet, but described their time in the White House as one brief shining moment, like Arthur's golden age. Just listen to that. That's powerful. Has a frequency to that. Camelot, I'm going to repeat it. Camelot was JFK's favorite myth. After his death, Jackie described their time in the White House as one brief shining moment, like Arthur's golden age. So Camelot, being this ideal kingdom, is surrounded by threats, always surrounded by threats, surrounding the camp of the saints, right? As I'm thinking about that, circling the camp of the saints, always the threats. That's why you have to have walls, right? Walls and knights. So they were surrounded by betrayal also and loss. So there's always betrayal in a kingdom. The Most High Yah was betrayed by his most beautiful creation. Can you imagine the feelings of betrayal? This most beautiful, magnificent sun that you created. Yeah, so could America have been imagined as a new Camelot built by noble lineages with divine codes and then hijacked? So the round table, standing for sovereignty, honor, and I'm wondering right now, let me get to this next slide. I'm wondering about the Mulungeons. Do you all know about the Mulungeons? Because I didn't know about the Mulungeons until maybe last year. So I'm putting together some, it's just my gut feeling. And I may have heard some of this somewhere. You know, you just hear fragments of things, but maybe it's starting to resonate now. So I'm thinking that the Moors and the Mulungeons could be tied to the legacy of Saint Maurice, that they could be deeply connected to America through hidden migrations and treaties and buried nobility. So the Mulungeons are a mysterious tri-racial group in Appalachia. They say here, just for the purpose of this, it says Black, Indigenous, and European mix. They have Moorish, North African, and possibly Hebrew roots. They were marginalized and hidden, but they survived with deep knowledge. Now, there are certain lineages that are in this country that a lot of us don't know about. And the Mulungeons are one of them. Now, the Mulungeons, I believe that Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, note the name Abraham, and I believe John Fitzgerald Kennedy, I believe they are Mulungeon bloodline. I don't know. Don't come at me. It's just a thought. It's my own opinion. That I think that they have similarities that are so deep. And I know people have already uncovered things about them, but it's just now hitting me. So that's why I'm sharing it. That I think that they are Mulungeons and they could be possibly related. And they were both assassinated, when you think about it, by the same group of people. Okay? Have you noticed? Have you heard about the people that assassinated JFK? It has been finally confirmed. Well, that's the same group that killed Lincoln. Because he went against the same interests. Okay? And the narrative about him is not true. He went against people that wanted to usurp the Moorish Empire. And do it through treaties and different things, right? Taking sovereignty and land, trickery. And we had the secret hidden hand people working through, bringing all these things about to take this nation and basically usurp the authority. So I believe that JFK wanting to get the secret societies out of American politics and power and influence, that that group didn't like these two. But I think their divine assignment was to destroy those groups. And even though they were assassinated, they began the process of destroying this ancient bloodline that has been at war against a noble bloodline. So that's where I am right now in thinking about the Moors, the empires, the civilizations that came before ours, the high civilization. So I'll be thinking about more of this, and more of this, pun intended. But let me just say this, it's just something that came to my mind. I go to Cumberland Island a lot, which is a state park. And a lot of the state parks are forbidden land for some reason. They've been taken over by the government. I've been to the Great Canyon, and I've been to other state parks, but Cumberland Island is especially powerful to me. And I've shared with you all over the years since 2020 when I first went to Cumberland Island. It would take a whole long amount of time for me to really get into it, but I want to say that JFK Jr. being married at the so-called Black church, it was a small one-room church. When I first heard that, it struck me as being strange, for one, because he was a blue blood, Kennedy. Why would he be marrying? I mean, he picked a woman who was like, she was an it girl. She was big in the fashion industry, Caroline. She hung around with all the it people. So for them to get married at this one room African or Black church, as they called it, the narrative says that. I think there is a coding to it that I'm starting to decode, and I'm going to share it eventually, but it's all starting to come to me. Why he honored that church, because I did a lot of research on the pastor that built that original church on Cumberland Island. And I think that there was some kind of honoring of that man. His name was Primus Mitchell. And I'll talk about him, but I believe he was a Moorish priest. He was a Moorish knight, a nobleman. So I just wanted to end on that. But also, wait, one more thing. Let's see. I'll talk more about the subject matter of what happened, like, to the Moors. I want to hear more, I keep saying more. I want to hear more narratives, and I'm going to pay attention to the things that I didn't pay attention to before. And look at this. I wanted to share. I purchased this actually when I was in Cumberland Island once. One of my visits. I've been there several times, but check this out. I know the light is glaring on it, but these are paper dolls. Kennedy and his family. Paper dolls. Remember playing with paper dolls? So, this is something that you won't see a lot in terms of culture. Another type of presidential, administration being treated this way. It was very iconic presidency, but I just purchased it because it was interesting that it was for sale while I was at Cumberland Island. I was at a bookstore actually in St. Mary's, and that's when I saw this and I got it. You might know the bookstore in St. Mary's, but I'm going to end this now because I'm going to go eat dinner. Late dinner. Wow, this is late dinner. I've been hanging out with you for a while. Thank you for hanging out. If you have anything to share that I missed, if you have more in terms of research, if you have correction for me, please share it. Please share it in the, you know, the comments section, because I do read the comments and I appreciate your comments. So I will be back soon. I'll give you warning before I plan another live stream. But listen, I could have talked to you a few more hours because I got so many notes that I've been taking. But I appreciate you being with me for this, wow, almost 2 hours. I said I wasn't going to do it, but please forgive me for talking your ears back and not reading the comment section, but I'll go back and read them. Let's see, what did you say, IG? You said that was an amazing wedding, JFK Jr. Yeah, it was. Very amazing. Tina, that's good research on that. You really do you think so? Thank you, Tina. That means a lot to me for you to say that, because you've been really instrumental in my understanding a lot of these concepts. Karen says identity theft and land heist. Yeah, turned us into a corporation. That's right, IG. And the way out of this, some people believe it's like an allegory, like the Wizard of Oz, you know, the whole thing about the gold and getting us off the gold standard. And I even went to Jekyll Island. So I'll talk about that at another time. Jekyll Island and the natives there and all kinds of interesting things about Jekyll Island. And I will also talk about Cumberland Island. Actually, I will go to Cumberland Island and do a at the moment report, okay? Because when I went to Cumberland Island, the church was not, the tour was closed down. So I couldn't go because it's 17 miles from the dock when you get off the dock, and you're given like beach bicycles, and you can't possibly ride 17 miles on a beach bicycle and make it in time for the shuttle, the ferry to get you back, because the ferry stops at a certain time. So it's a lot of things. Unless you stay on the island and you can dish out like $900 a day to stay on the hotel on the island, or stay in St. Mary's like I do at a bed and breakfast, more reasonable. But they also have campgrounds there too. So I wasn't prepared to camp. I was, you know, traveling by myself, and I wasn't going to be camping by myself. So I want to go back and actually visit the other side of the island and see the church that Primus Mitchell built. So, or you remember me talking about the thatched cabin on Cumberland Island? There was an essay that I read to you all a few years ago about the thatched roof cabin. So if you remember that, maybe we will revisit some of these things, but I will go back to Cumberland Island and give you a on the ground report. Okay, so look forward to some fun things like that I have planned. We're gonna be outside, okay, and I'll keep you posted on. I got a newsletter coming where I want to share more things in a Substack and stuff like that. So if you have any ideas, share them with me, and I will see you soon. Thank you, Karen, for keeping us in a good vibration. Bless you all in the love of the Most High Yah and His Son, Jesus Christ. I pray peace and blessings upon you all. And I love you, Chatmosphere. I thank you for hanging with me all these years. We're still here, okay? And I will still be here for you to entertain you in some form. And we can just stay together and do our group project, because we have a lot of work to do to figure all this crazy stuff out. Okay, so that's it for now. I will be back soon, and I will keep you posted on all of the things. Okay, take care.
The Cultural Reckoning, Seeking Balance, Reclaiming Culture.